He only stopped for a minute, just long enough to help a stranded stranger in the rain. No questions. No fear. Just kindness. But days later, his brother was hunted, his life watched, his name already known. Nothing was random. Nothing was safe. Then the truth hit. He wasn't helping a stranger. He was chosen. And that choice started everything. Now tell me, would you still stop that night or drive away? Have you ever helped a stranger without thinking about what might come after? Just a moment, just a choice, just the feeling that walking away would be worse than stopping. Imagine the road empty, soaked in rain, headlights cutting through the dark. And then you see him. A man standing alone, not waving, not shouting, just waiting. Would you slow down? Or would you keep driving? Ethan didn't hesitate. He pulled over, rolled down the window, and asked the simplest question, "Need help?" The man looked at him for a second too long. Not surprised. Not relieved. Just certain. That should have been the first warning. Still, Ethan opened the door. The rain got heavier. The silence inside the car felt heavier. No small talk, no nervous jokes, just the quiet sound of water hitting glass. Then the stranger spoke. "You live alone, don't you?" Ethan frowned. "Yeah, why?" No answer. Just a faint smile, like he already knew. Something shifted right there. A small feeling, easy to ignore. But it stayed. Because the truth is, some moments don't feel dangerous when they begin. They feel normal, ordinary, harmless. Until later, when every detail starts to make sense. And by then, it's already too late. Ethan stopped that night. And it became the biggest mistake of his life. Ethan Caldwell wasn't the kind of man people remembered twice. 38, quiet, predictable, the type who blended into routines so perfectly that even his neighbors could barely describe him. Every morning, he woke before sunrise, walked into a kitchen that still smelled faintly of old wood and memories, and poured himself a cup of black coffee. No sugar. No distractions. Just silence. The house he lived in wasn't new, wasn't impressive, but it had been his parents', and that was reason enough to stay. Another quiet day, he muttered once, setting the cup down as pale light slipped through the window. No one answered. No one ever did. His job at the logistics warehouse paid the bills. Nothing more, nothing less. He wasn't chasing promotions, wasn't building something bigger. Stability was enough. Or at least, that's what he told himself. People at work trusted him because Ethan didn't lie, didn't cut corners, didn't play games. If he said he'd handle something, it got done. Simple as that. And maybe that was the problem. Because being dependable often meant being taken for granted. Being kind meant saying yes when you should have said no. Even when a voice deep down whispered, "This won't end well." Ethan heard that voice more often than he admitted. Still, he ignored it. "Help when you can," his father used to say. "That's what makes you a good man." Ethan believed that. He held on to it long after everything else faded. But standing alone in that quiet house, staring at nothing in particular, a thought began to surface, small, uncomfortable, impossible to shake. What if being a good man was exactly what made you vulnerable? And what if, this time, it was going to cost him more than he could afford? If Ethan represented control, then Ryan Caldwell was the exact opposite. Younger by 5 years, louder, sharper, always chasing something just out of reach, and always cutting corners to get there faster. Where Ethan built slowly, Ryan skipped steps. Where Ethan kept promises, Ryan bent them until they no longer meant anything. It hadn't always been like this. There was a time when Ryan still showed up for family dinners, still laughed too loudly, still believed things would work out. But somewhere along the way, that confidence turned into desperation. And desperation turned into debt. "Relax, I've got it under control," Ryan once said, leaning back like nothing could touch him. Ethan didn't answer. He had heard that line too many times. Because every "I've got it" eventually became a late-night knock on the door. Every "just this once" turned into another favor, another transfer, another excuse. And every time, Ethan told himself it was the last. But it never was. The tension between them didn't explode all at once. It built slowly: missed calls, ignored messages, short conversations that ended too quickly. Ryan stopped asking how Ethan was. Ethan stopped believing anything Ryan said. Then came the silence. Not peaceful. Not clean. Just heavy. Until one night, Ethan stared at his phone, Ryan's name lighting up the screen again. He didn't pick up immediately. Something felt different this time. Not urgency. Not panic. Something darker. When he finally answered, Ryan didn't waste time. "I need help." No explanation. No apology. Just that. Ethan closed his eyes for a second, already knowing this wasn't about money anymore. Because this time, Ryan had gotten himself into something far more dangerous than debt. Ryan showed up the next night, not waiting for an invitation, not even knocking twice. Ethan opened the door and immediately saw it, the tension in Ryan's face, the forced calm that never meant anything good. "I need 15,000, Ryan said, stepping inside like the answer was already yes. No build-up. No explanation. Just a number, heavy and precise. Ethan didn't respond right away. He walked past him, slow, controlled, buying time. The kitchen light flickered slightly as he set his coffee down. "For what?" he finally asked. Ryan exhaled, irritated. "Does it matter? I'll pay you back." A familiar line. Too familiar. Ethan looked at him, really looked this time. The restless eyes. The tension in his shoulders. This wasn't just another bad decision. This was something deeper. Something that had already gone too far. "You said that last time." "I mean it now." Silence stretched between them, thick enough to feel. Ryan stepped closer. "I don't have time for this, Ethan." That was the moment something shifted. Ethan straightened, his voice quieter than expected. "No." Ryan blinked. "What?" "I said no. I'm not helping you anymore." For a second, it didn't land. Then it did. "Are you serious right now?" Ryan's voice cracked, not just angry, cornered. "You're just gonna let me deal with this alone?" Ethan didn't move. His chest tightened, but he held his ground. "You got yourself into it." That hit harder than any shout. Ryan laughed, sharp and hollow. "Wow. So that's it? That's who you are now?" Ethan didn't answer. Because the truth was, he wasn't sure himself. As Ryan stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to shake the frame, one thought lingered, quieter but heavier than everything else. Did he just do the right thing, or make a mistake he couldn't take back? The house felt different after Ryan left. Quieter, but not peaceful, like something had been unsettled and hadn't found its place again. Ethan stayed there for a while, staring at nothing, replaying the moment over and over. The word "no" still echoed in his head, sharper than he expected. It should have felt like relief. It didn't. So he left. The rain had already started by the time he got in the car. Not heavy at first, just enough to blur the windshield, to soften the world outside into streaks of light and shadow. The roads were nearly empty. Streetlights flickered past, one after another, like a rhythm he didn't need to think about. Then the rain got worse. It came down harder, louder, drowning everything else out. Visibility dropped. The kind of weather that made people slow down or keep going without looking too closely. That's when he saw him. A figure on the side of the road. Still. Not waving. Not pacing. Just standing there beside a dark, silent car. No hazard lights. No movement. Ethan's foot eased off the gas. For a second, he considered driving past. It would have been easy. No one would know. No one would expect him to stop, not after the night he just had. Then a thought slipped in, quiet but persistent. What if that was you? The car slowed more. Another second. Another choice. Damn it, Ethan muttered under his breath, already turning the wheel. He pulled over. The headlights cut through the rain, illuminating the man older, maybe in his 60s, coat soaked through, face unreadable. Not panicked. Not desperate. Just waiting. Ethan rolled down the window halfway. Rain sprayed in immediately. Hey, he called out, raising his voice over the storm. You need help. The man stepped closer, not rushing, not hesitating. His eyes met Ethan's, steady in a way that didn't quite fit the situation. Yes, he said simply. I was hoping someone would stop. Something about the way he said it made Ethan pause. Not relief. Not gratitude. Expectation. Still, he unlocked the door. Get in. The man opened it and slid into the passenger seat, bringing the cold and rain with him. The door shut. The sound of the storm dulled instantly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Ethan adjusted his grip on the wheel. Where are you headed? A brief silence. Then the man turned his head slightly, studying him, not like a stranger would, but like someone confirming something. Drive, he said quietly. I'll tell you. Ethan frowned, but pulled back onto the road anyway. The tires hissed against the wet asphalt, the world narrowing to headlights and darkness. Another few seconds passed. Then the man spoke again. Thank you, Ethan. The name landed hard. Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel. His eyes flicked sideways, just for a fraction of a second. I didn't tell you my name. The man didn't answer immediately. He just smiled, faint, knowing, almost invisible in the dim light. And somehow, that was worse than any explanation. Ethan kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was no longer there. The name still echoed, sharp and out of place. He waited a few seconds, expecting an explanation that didn't come. The silence stretched again, heavier this time. How do you know my name? He finally asked, his voice steady but tighter than before. The man didn't answer right away. He watched the rain slide down the windshield, as if the question didn't require urgency. You notice things when you pay attention, he said calmly. Most people don't. That wasn't an answer. Ethan glanced at him briefly. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to notice. A faint smile. Are you sure about that? A small chill crept in, subtle but undeniable. The car moved through another stretch of empty road. No other headlights. No signs of life. Just darkness and rain pressing in from all sides. Do you always stop? The man asked. For people who need help? Yeah. Even when it's inconvenient? Ethan hesitated. I guess so. Even when it might cost you something? That made him pause longer. His fingers tightened slightly on the wheel. What's that supposed to mean? The man turned his head just enough to look at him again. Kindness isn't free, Ethan. It never is. People just don't see the price until later. The words settled in slowly. Ethan let out a quiet breath. You talk like you've seen that happen. I have, the man replied. More times than you'd think. Another silence. Not empty, waiting. Ethan shook his head lightly, trying to push the feeling away. Look, I just gave you a ride. That's all this is. For now, the man said. That landed wrong. Ethan frowned. What's that supposed to mean? But again, no direct answer. Just that same composed stillness. Then, without warning, the man asked, Your brother called tonight, didn't he? Ethan's eyes snapped toward him. For a split second, the car drifted slightly before he corrected it. How do you know that? The man didn't even blink. Because people like him always call when it's already too late. A beat. Then quieter, almost to himself, he added, and they never understand what they've stepped into. Ethan swallowed, something tightening in his chest. This wasn't coincidence anymore. The question came back, louder this time, impossible to ignore. Who is this man? Ethan didn't ask again. Not because he wasn't curious, but because something told him he wouldn't get a straight answer anyway. The road stretched on, wet and empty, the sound of rain filling the space between them. Still, the weight of the conversation lingered, pressing in from all sides. After a few more minutes, Ethan cleared his throat. So where exactly am I taking you? The man didn't respond immediately. He watched the passing lights, slow and thoughtful, as if measuring time instead of distance. Then, quietly, he said, Just keep going. I'll let you know when to stop. That didn't help. Ethan exhaled, a little sharper this time. You're being vague on purpose, aren't you? A small pause. Then the man turned slightly, just enough for his voice to land more directly. You chose to stop, Ethan. Not me. That answer settled indifferently. Ethan tightened his grip on the wheel. Yeah, because you needed help. Another brief silence. Then came the line soft, almost casual, but it didn't belong in that moment. A good deed is never just a good deed. Ethan frowned. What's that supposed to mean? The man didn't look at him this time. It means every action opens a door. You just don't always see what's waiting on the other side. The words hung there, heavier than they should have been. Ethan let out a short breath, trying to shake it off. I think you're overcomplicating it. I saw someone stuck, I stopped. That's it. Is it? The man asked, calm, almost curious. A flicker of irritation crossed Ethan's face. Yeah, it is. Another pause. Then the man spoke again, quieter now, but more precise. If it were that simple, you wouldn't still be thinking about it. That hit. Ethan didn't answer right away. Because he was thinking about it. About the name. About Ryan. About everything that suddenly felt connected in ways he couldn't explain. The rain intensified again, drumming harder against the glass. For a moment, the world outside disappeared completely, leaving only the interior of the car and the man beside him. Then, without warning, the man added, Some doors don't close once you open them. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you trying to warn me or threaten me? This time, the man turned fully toward him. And for the first time, there was something different in his expression. Not cold. Not distant. Certain. I'm just telling you the truth. A beat passed. Then he looked forward again, as if the conversation was already over. Ethan swallowed, a quiet tension settling deeper in his chest. Because whatever this was, it didn't feel like a coincidence anymore. By the time Ethan dropped the man off, the rain had already started to fade, but the feeling didn't leave with it. The address had been vague, the goodbye even more so. No handshake. No, thank you in the way people usually say it. Just a quiet, you'll understand soon, before the man stepped out and disappeared into the dark. Ethan drove home in silence. The next morning looked exactly the same as every other. Same kitchen, same coffee, same pale light stretching across the floor. He followed his routine without thinking, trying to convince himself that nothing had changed. But something had. It was subtle, almost invisible, yet impossible to ignore. He noticed it first at the window. A reflection that lingered a second too long. A shape across the street that seemed still. Ethan frowned, stepping closer. Nothing. Just an empty sidewalk and a parked car that hadn't been there the night before. Get a grip, he muttered. At work, it got worse. Every time he turned a corner, it felt like someone had just been there. Conversations lowered when he passed. A security camera above the loading dock caught his attention. He'd seen it 100 times before, but now it felt different. Like it wasn't just recording, it was watching. You okay, man? A coworker asked. Ethan forced a quick nod. Yeah, just tired. But he wasn't tired. He was alert. Too alert. That evening, as he walked back to his car, he slowed down without meaning to. The parking lot was quiet, the air heavy after the rain. Then, there it was again. That feeling. Eyes on him. He turned sharply. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. Just rows of cars and dim lights flickering overhead. Ethan let out a breath, but it didn't steady him. Because this time, the thought didn't sound irrational. It sounded accurate. And for the first time, he didn't ask if he was imagining it. He asked something else. Who's watching me? The question lingered longer than Ethan expected, following him into the night, into the silence of his house. But before he could make sense of it, his phone rang again. Ryan. Ethan stared at the screen for a second, hesitation creeping in. Then he answered. This time, there was no attitude on the other end. No arrogance. Just breathing fast, uneven. Ethan, you need to listen to me. Something was wrong. What happened? Ethan asked, already standing up. I messed up, Ryan said, voice low, almost shaking. It's not what you think. It's not just money anymore. A cold feeling settled in. Then what is it? There was a pause. Not long, but heavy. I owe people, Ryan continued. And they're not normal people. Ethan frowned. Define not normal. I mean they don't wait. They don't negotiate. And they don't forget. That landed differently. Ethan moved toward the window without realizing it, pulling the curtain slightly aside. The street outside looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. How much? He asked. It's not about the amount. Ryan snapped, then lowered his voice immediately. It's who I owe it to. Another pause. Then, quieter. They came to see me. Ethan froze. Came where? My place. Last night. They didn't knock, Ethan. They just walked in. A sharp jolt ran through him. What did they say? Ryan let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but there was no humor in it. They knew everything. My name. My accounts. Even you. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Why me? I don't know, Ryan said quickly. But they asked about you. Specifically. Silence fell hard between them. Ethan's mind flashed back rain, headlights, that man's voice, calm and certain. They're watching, Ryan whispered. I can feel it. Everywhere. Ethan didn't answer right away. Because now, for the first time, the pieces didn't just feel connected. They felt aligned. And whatever Ryan had gotten himself into, it wasn't just debt. It was something organized. Something precise. Something that had already decided Ethan was part of it. Ethan stayed silent for a moment longer, letting Ryan's words settle into something real. It wasn't panic anymore. It was structure. Pattern. Something deliberate. And that was worse. What do you want me to do? Ethan finally asked, slower this time. Ryan didn't hesitate. I need you to come here. That hit immediately. No, Ethan replied, almost instinctively. I'm not walking into whatever you've dragged yourself into. Ethan, listen to me, Ryan's voice sharpened, urgency bleeding through. They already know about you. You think staying home keeps you out of this? A pause. Ethan's eyes drifted toward the window again. The parked car across the street. Still there. Still quiet. That's exactly what I'm trying to figure out, he said under his breath. Ryan continued, faster now. They asked where you live, where you work. I didn't tell them everything, but what? I didn't have to, Ryan admitted, voice dropping. They already knew enough. A cold tension tightened in Ethan's chest. So you brought me into this, Ethan said, not raising his voice, which somehow made it worse. Whether you meant to or not. I didn't have a choice. You always say that. Silence. Then, quieter, almost desperate. This time I mean it. Ethan closed his eyes for a second. He could hear it now, not just fear, but pressure. Real pressure. The kind that didn't come from mistakes. The kind that came from people who didn't make mistakes. What happens if I don't show up? Ethan asked. Ryan didn't answer right away. That was the answer. They'll come to you, Ryan said finally. And it won't be a conversation. The words hung there, heavy and final. Ethan exhaled slowly, his mind racing through options that didn't feel like choices. Every direction led somewhere bad, just different versions of it. You're asking me to step into this, he said. I'm asking you to help me get out, Ryan replied quickly. Ethan let out a quiet, almost humorless breath. Because those weren't the same thing. His gaze shifted again, back to that car outside, to the feeling that hadn't left since the night before. And for the first time, the question formed clearly, impossible to ignore. Was he being pulled into this? Or had he already been in it from the moment he stopped that car? Ethan didn't sleep much that night. Every sound felt sharper, every shadow held just a little too long. By morning, the tension hadn't faded, it had settled. Solid. Quiet. Waiting. He stepped outside earlier than usual, keys in hand, eyes scanning the street without meaning to. The car across the road was gone. That should have helped. It didn't. He locked the door, turned, then stopped. Someone was standing by his car. Not moving. Not hiding. Just there. The same man. Dry this time. Composed. Like the rain had never touched him. Ethan froze for half a second, his mind catching up too slowly. You've got to be kidding me. The man tilted his head slightly, almost amused. Good morning, Ethan. How did you find me? The question came out sharper than intended. A pause. Not long, but deliberate. You brought me here, the man said calmly. You just didn't realize it. That made no sense. Ethan stepped closer, tension rising fast. No. I dropped you off miles away. And yet, the man replied, glancing briefly at the house. Here we are. A flicker of irritation cut through the unease. You've been following me. Watching, the man corrected softly. That word landed harder. Ethan's jaw tightened. What do you want? For the first time, the man's expression shifted slightly, but enough. Not threatening. Not urgent. Certain. I told you before, he said, voice steady. You would understand. Understand what? Ethan pushed, stepping forward. You show up, you know things you shouldn't. Now you're outside my house. What is this? The man held his gaze without blinking. Then, quietly, almost like a reminder, I told you, you would need me. The words hit like a jolt. Ethan stopped. For a second, nothing moved. Not the air. not the space between them. Then Ethan let out a short breath, shaking his head. No. Whatever this is, I didn't ask for it. No, the man agreed. But you chose it. Silence followed, thick and pressing. Ethan glanced past him instinctively down the street, across the sidewalks, toward nothing and everything at once. Because suddenly, the question wasn't if he was being watched anymore. It was how long. When he looked back, the man had already stepped closer, just enough to close the distance. You can keep pretending this isn't happening, he said quietly. Or you can start asking the right questions. Ethan didn't respond. Because for the first time, he realized something far worse than being followed. He wasn't being approached by chance. He was being handled. And before he could say anything else, the man added one final line, low, precise, impossible to ignore. They're already moving, Ethan. A beat. And you're already late. Ethan didn't move. The words "you're already late" echoed louder than they should have, settling somewhere deeper than fear. He studied the man in front of him, searching for urgency, for aggression, anything that made sense. Instead, there was control. What are you talking about? Ethan asked, slower now, measuring every word. The man didn't answer directly. He glanced briefly down the street, as if checking something unseen, then returned his gaze. Your brother is already in motion, he said. And the people behind him don't wait for explanations. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then say it clearly. What do you want from me? A short pause. Then, finally, something shifted. I'm offering you a way through this, the man said. Not help. Not a favor. A way. Ethan let out a quiet, almost disbelieving breath. You just show up at my house, tell me I'm in danger, and now you're offering solutions? I'm offering clarity, the man corrected. That's not the same thing. No, he agreed calmly. But it's more useful. That answer didn't sit right. Ethan stepped closer, tension rising again. Why me? Why are you doing this? For the first time, the man didn't respond immediately. His expression didn't change, but the silence stretched longer than before, deliberate, controlled. Because you're already involved, he said at last. That's not a reason. It's the only one that matters. Ethan shook his head slightly, frustration building under the surface. You expect me to trust you? I don't even know who you are. You don't need to, the man replied. You just need to decide how much control you want over what happens next. That line lingered. Control. Ethan glanced toward his car, then back again. The street felt narrower somehow, like the space around him was closing in. And if I say no, he asked. The man's expression didn't shift. Then you'll continue exactly as you are now, he said quietly. Reactive. Unprepared. And eventually, overwhelmed. A beat passed. Ethan exhaled slowly, his mind turning faster now, weighing something he didn't fully understand. Because this didn't feel like an offer. It felt like positioning. And the question pressed harder than before, sharper, more dangerous. Why would a man like this choose to help me? Ethan didn't answer the question out loud, but it was written all over his face. Suspicion. Resistance. A need for something real. The man studied him for a moment, then reached into his coat, not fast, not threatening, just deliberate. Ethan tensed instantly. Don't. The man stopped halfway, then slowly pulled out a thin, black folder. Relax, he said. If I wanted to hurt you, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That didn't help. Still, Ethan didn't step back. The folder opened with a soft snap. Inside, photos. The first one slid forward. Ethan, standing outside his house. Taken from across the street. His chest tightened. That's not possible, he muttered. The second photo. Ethan at work. Loading dock. Timestamped. The third. Ryan arguing with two men outside a dim building. Faces partially visible. Not random. Not street level. Organized. Ethan looked up sharply. What is this? Context, the man replied. Another page turned. Bank statements. Numbers. Transfers Ethan had never seen before, but Ryan's name was there. Again. And again. Larger amounts than he'd ever admitted. You think this is about 15,000, the man said quietly. That's just what he told you. Ethan's pulse started to rise. Then what is it about? The man didn't hesitate this time. Control. A beat. Then he continued, voice steady, almost clinical. Your brother borrowed from people who don't lend money. They build leverage. Debt is just the entry point. Ethan shook his head, trying to process it. That doesn't explain you. No, the man agreed. It doesn't. Another page. This time, surveillance stills. Different angles. Different locations. The same pattern. Watching. Tracking. Predicting. Ethan's throat went dry. You're part of this. The man closed the folder slowly. I'm adjacent to it. That's not better. It's more honest. Ethan took a step back, the space between them suddenly not enough. So what, this is some kind of operation? You're monitoring people? Setting them up? The man tilted his head slightly. We observe patterns. We step in when outcomes matter. We. Ethan caught that immediately. Who is we? A small pause. Then, finally, something closer to truth. People who don't wait for problems to grow, he said. People who remove them early. That word, remove, landed hard. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You're talking about my brother. I'm talking about consequences. Silence fell again, heavier than before. Ethan glanced at the folder, then back at the man. Every piece fit too well. The timing. The knowledge. The way nothing felt accidental anymore. This wasn't a stranger. This was someone connected to something bigger, structured, funded, and already in motion long before Ethan ever stopped his car. His voice dropped, quieter now. So you've been watching all of this, from the beginning? The man didn't answer right away. Then, calmly, long enough. A sharp breath left Ethan's chest. Because that meant one thing. This wasn't unfolding. It had already been decided. Ethan was still holding the folder when something else caught his attention. He flipped another page, slower this time. And that's when the pattern became impossible to ignore. At first, it looked like noise. Names. Dates. Transactions. Random entries that didn't seem connected. Then his eyes slowed. And the pattern revealed itself. Different cities. Different people. Same structure repeating over and over again. They don't lend money, the man continued, voice calm, almost clinical. They study behavior. Predict it. Then they build pressure around it. Ethan frowned, flipping another page. Pressure for what? Leverage, the man replied. Always leverage. Another page slid into view. Photos this time. Not just Ryan. Others. A woman outside a courthouse, shoulders tense. A man stepping into a bank, looking over his shoulder. Someone sitting alone in a parked car, posture stiff, unaware they were already being watched. Ethan's fingers tightened slightly on the paper. They track routines, the man went on. Find the weakest point in someone's life, then turn it into a door. Ethan's jaw hardened. And if someone refuses? A brief pause. They don't force them, the man said. For a split second, that sounded almost harmless. Until he added, quietly, They just remove every other option. Silence dropped, heavier this time. Ethan didn't look up, because now it was clear. This wasn't random. This wasn't even personal. It was a system. Cold, precise, patient. And once you were inside it, you didn't just owe them. You became part of it. Ethan didn't say anything right away. He couldn't. The folder, the photos, the calm certainty in the man's voice, it all pressed in at once, leaving no space to deny what he was starting to understand. This wasn't random. It never had been. His eyes moved again, almost instinctively, scanning the street. The angles. The parked cars. The windows across from his house. For the first time, he wasn't just looking. He was analyzing. "How long?" Ethan asked quietly. The man didn't answer. That was enough. Ethan took a slow step back, his awareness sharpening to an uncomfortable level. Every surface felt like it could reflect him. Every shadow felt placed. He turned slightly, glancing toward the side of the house, and froze for half a second. A small black dome above the neighbor's garage. A camera. Had that always been there? His breath slowed, but his pulse didn't. He looked up toward his own roofline. Then the streetlight. Then the corner at the end of the block. Patterns. Positions. Coverage. Jesus, he muttered under his breath. "You're starting to see it," the man said calmly. Ethan ignored him, stepping toward his car, then stopping again. His reflection stared back at him from the window, except it wasn't just his reflection. Behind him, faint, distorted movement. He turned sharply. Nothing. Just empty space. Still air. But it didn't feel empty anymore. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, tension building fast. "This isn't just about Ryan, is it?" "No," the man replied. "It never was." That answer settled deeper than anything else. Ethan's gaze shifted again, slower this time, more deliberate. The houses. The lines of sight. The quiet. Someone could be watching from anywhere. Or everywhere. He exhaled, but the breath didn't steady him. It only confirmed what his instincts were already telling him. He wasn't stepping into something new. He had been inside it for longer than he realized. His voice dropped, almost to himself. "So this is what you meant?" The man didn't respond. Ethan looked back at him, eyes sharper now, no hesitation left, only one growing realization. If they've been watching me this whole time, a beat, then what exactly are they waiting for? The question didn't fade after Ethan said it. It stayed there, hanging in the air, heavier than anything that had come before. What are they waiting for? The man finally moved, not closer, not away, just enough to shift the moment. "They were waiting for you to notice," he said. Ethan's brow tightened. "Notice what?" A brief pause. "That you were never outside of it." The words landed slower this time, but deeper. Ethan shook his head immediately. "No, that's not possible. I didn't even know any of this existed until a few days ago." "You didn't need to," the man replied calmly. "Awareness isn't a requirement for involvement." That didn't make sense, or maybe it did, in a way Ethan didn't want to accept. He took a step forward, frustration rising. "So what, I just got dragged into this because of Ryan?" The man's gaze held steady. Ryan was an entry point. That stopped him. "An entry point?" Ethan repeated, quieter now. "Yes." A beat passed. Then the man added, more precisely, but not the reason. Ethan's chest tightened. "Then what is?" This time, the silence stretched longer than before. Not empty, measured. Then the man spoke. "You." Everything in Ethan's expression shifted. "What?" "You were selected," the man said, as if stating something obvious. Long before your brother lost control. Ethan let out a short, disbelieving breath. Selected for what? I'm just a warehouse manager. I don't have anything they'd want. That's exactly why you were useful. That hit harder than expected. Ethan's voice sharpened. Explain. The man tilted his head slightly. You're predictable. Consistent. You follow patterns. You respond the same way under pressure. You help when you shouldn't. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's not a reason to pull someone into something like this. It's a reason to rely on them. A pause. Then, quieter, more precise. You stopped that night because you always would. The memory snapped back, rain, headlights, the decision that felt so simple at the time. Ethan's voice dropped. So that wasn't chance. No. Then what was it? The man held his gaze. It was confirmation. A sharp silence followed. Ethan stepped back slightly, the weight of it settling in all at once. Every moment, every choice, it wasn't random. It had been observed, tested, expected. His thoughts raced, trying to push against it, to find something that didn't fit. So I'm what? He said finally. Part of a system? A variable? A tool? The man didn't correct him. That was worse. Ethan let out a slow breath, something colder forming beneath the confusion now. Because if this was true, if he had been chosen, studied, positioned, then the real question wasn't how he got here. It was whether he had ever had a choice at all. His voice dropped, quieter, edged with something sharper than fear. So I was never helping anyone, a beat. I was being used. Ethan's last words didn't fully settle before something else surfaced, faster, sharper, harder to ignore. If he had been used, then someone had to open that door. His gaze locked onto the man. You said Ryan was just an entry point. Yes. Then what did he give them? This time, the answer came without delay. Access. The word hit differently. Ethan's expression tightened. Be specific. The man studied him for a brief moment, as if measuring how much he was ready to hear. Then he spoke, calm but precise. Your brother didn't just borrow money. He traded information to delay consequences. Ethan froze. What kind of information? A beat. Yours. It landed like a blunt impact. Ethan shook his head immediately. No. He wouldn't. He already did. Silence snapped into place. Ethan's mind raced, rejecting it, searching for anything that didn't fit. That doesn't make sense. Ryan doesn't even know anything worth giving. The man's voice stayed level. He knew enough. Your routines. Your habits. Where you go. When you're alone. Images flashed without warning. Ryan sitting at his kitchen table, glancing around, asking casual questions that didn't feel important at the time. What time do you usually get home? You still working weekends? You ever change your route? Ethan's breathing slowed, but only because everything else tightened. He was setting me up, he said quietly. Not at first, the man corrected. At first, he was buying time. Another beat. Then he realized information was more valuable than money. That shift hit harder than anything else. Ethan let out a sharp breath, something breaking through the control he'd been holding. So he sold me out. The man didn't soften it. Yes. The word echoed. Ethan turned slightly, looking away, but there was nowhere for the thought to go. It stayed, pressing in from every direction. Every conversation, every ignored instinct, it all rewrote itself in seconds. You said they knew about me before, Ethan muttered. Before the call. Before any of this. They were aware, the man replied. Your brother confirmed it. Strengthened it. Made you actionable. Ethan's jaw tightened hard enough to hurt. Actionable, predictable, accessible, useful. Each word landed colder than the last. For a moment, Ethan didn't speak. The anger didn't come all at once. It built, slow and controlled, threading through the shock. Because this wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. Ryan hadn't just dragged him into something dangerous. He had handed him over. Ethan finally looked back, eyes sharper now, something darker settling behind them. And where is he now? The man held his gaze. Exactly where they want him. A pause. Then, quieter, and exactly where they expect you to go next. The answer didn't give Ethan relief. It closed something instead. He stood there for a second longer, the space around him suddenly feeling tighter, like the street itself had narrowed without moving. Every direction now pointed to the same place. To Ryan. To them. So that's it, Ethan said under his breath. I walk in, and I become whatever they need me to be. The man didn't interrupt. That silence pressed harder than any response. Ethan turned away, pacing a few steps toward the edge of the driveway. His eyes scanned the surroundings again, windows, rooftops, empty sidewalks, but nothing felt empty anymore. It felt arranged. You said I have control, Ethan muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Doesn't look like it. You still have a choice, the man replied. Ethan stopped. A short, humorless breath escaped him. Do I? He turned back sharply. Because from where I'm standing, every option leads to the same place. Another pause. Then, quieter. You go to him, or they come to you. That settled it. Ethan's jaw tightened, the weight of it finally landing fully. There was no clean way out. No delay. No distance left to hide behind. For a moment, he closed his eyes. Just one. The house behind him. The routine. The quiet life he held on to, it all felt distant now, like something already gone. When he opened them again, something had shifted. Not calm. Not fear. Focus. Where is he? Ethan asked. The man didn't move, didn't hesitate. But he didn't answer immediately either. Because the moment wasn't about location anymore. It was about commitment. Ethan stood still, alone in a space that no longer belonged to him, surrounded by decisions that weren't really choices. And for the first time, he understood what pressure actually felt like, not loud, not chaotic, but silent and absolute. The silence didn't break him. It shaped him. Ethan stood there, letting everything settle into place, not the fear, not the confusion, but the pattern behind it. Every detail he had tried to ignore now aligned with uncomfortable clarity. The questions were still there, but they no longer mattered the same way. What happens if I go? He asked, voice steady. The man watched him carefully. That depends on what you decide to be when you get there. Not who. What? Ethan nodded slowly, almost to himself. That was the first honest answer he'd heard. He turned, walking back toward his car, but this time there was no hesitation in his steps. No second-guessing. Just movement, controlled, intentional. His reflection flashed briefly across the window again, but he didn't check behind him anymore. He already knew. They expect me to react, Ethan said, opening the car door. Walk in blind. Desperate. Predictable. Yes. Ethan paused, one hand on the door. Then I don't do that. A slight shift in the man's expression, subtle, but noticeable. Careful, he said. Changing the pattern changes the outcome. But it also changes their response. Ethan got into the car, the engine humming to life under his hands. For the first time since this started, his breathing was even. Good, he replied quietly. The man stepped closer to the window. You're not prepared for what's waiting. Ethan looked straight ahead, eyes focused, something colder settling behind them. I'm not going in unprepared. A brief pause. Then the man asked, almost as if confirming something, so, what are you going to do? Ethan didn't answer immediately. His mind was already moving, replaying conversations, mapping behaviors, isolating weaknesses. Not reacting. Planning. They used what they knew about me, he said finally. So I'll use what they don't. The words hung there, sharp and deliberate. The man studied him for a second longer, then stepped back slightly. Then you understand. Ethan closed the door, but before he pulled away, he spoke one last time low, controlled, no trace of doubt left. This time, I'm not the man they studied. A beat. I'm the one they didn't see coming. And as the car rolled forward into the quiet street, the shift was complete. Because whatever came next, Ethan wasn't walking into it as himself anymore. The drive didn't feel the same anymore. Same streets. Same turns. But Ethan wasn't moving through them the way he used to. He wasn't reacting, he was observing. Every mirror check had purpose. Every stoplight was a pause to think, not wait. They had studied him. That meant they expected patterns. So he broke them. Instead of heading straight toward Ryan, Ethan turned off early, cutting through a side street he rarely used. Then another. No clear destination. Just movement, unpredictable, controlled. His eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. A dark sedan, 2 cars behind. It stayed through the first turn. Then the second. Ethan's grip tightened slightly. There you are. He slowed just enough to test it. The sedan slowed too. Confirmation. But instead of accelerating, Ethan did the opposite. He pulled into a narrow convenience store lot, sudden, sharp. Tires rolled over wet gravel. He killed the engine but didn't get out. The sedan passed. Didn't stop. Didn't slow enough to look obvious. But Ethan caught it, the hesitation. The fraction of a second too long. He leaned back slightly, watching through the reflection in the glass. They're careful, he muttered. Good. That meant they were watching, not acting. Yet, he reached into the glove compartment, pulling out an old receipt, flipping it over, starting to sketch quick lines, routes, intersections, timing. Not perfect. Just enough. Because now he understood something critical. If they were tracking him based on expectation, then control didn't come from speed. It came from disruption. His phone buzzed. Ryan. Ethan stared at the screen, then answered. Where are you? Ryan asked immediately, voice tight. Ethan didn't answer that. You said they're watching you too. They are. Good, Ethan said quietly. A pause. What do you mean good? Ethan's eyes moved back to the road, mind already calculating. It means they're not done yet, he said. And if they're not done, they still need something. Silence on the other end. Ryan didn't understand. Ethan did. He ended the call first. Then started the engine again, slower this time, more deliberate. Because this wasn't about running anymore. It was about positioning. And for the first time since this started, Ethan wasn't the one being moved. He was the one deciding where the game would go next. Ethan didn't drive to Ryan immediately. Not yet. Instead, he pulled over in a quiet, empty lot, engine still running, fingers resting lightly on the wheel. The anger wasn't loud, it was controlled, building in layers, fed by every detail that now made sense. He picked up his phone again. This time, he called. Ryan answered almost instantly. Where are you? Did you see them? There's stop, Ethan cut in, voice calm, too calm. We're done skipping details. A pause. What are you talking about? Ryan asked, defensive already. Ethan leaned back slightly, eyes fixed ahead. You gave them my information. Silence. Not confusion. Not denial. Silence. Ethan's jaw tightened. Say it. Ryan exhaled sharply. I didn't have a choice, there it is. The words landed hard. I told you, they came to me, Ryan started, but Ethan didn't let him finish. You told them about my routines, Ethan said, each word precise. My schedule. When I'm alone. I was buying time. You were selling me. That broke something. Ryan's voice cracked. You think I wanted this? You think I planned it? I think, Ethan said slowly, you kept going until you ran out of things to give, and then you chose me. Another silence, heavier this time. Ethan let it sit. Because now it wasn't about guessing anymore. It was about seeing clearly. All those questions you asked, he continued. The casual ones. What time do you get home? Still working weekends? That wasn't random. Ryan didn't respond. He didn't have to. Ethan's grip tightened, the anger finally surfacing, not explosive, but sharp, focused. You didn't just drag me into this, he said. You positioned me. Ryan's breathing grew uneven. They would have hurt me, and what do you think they're going to do to me? That question cut deeper than anything else. Ryan had no answer. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The connection held, but it felt thinner now, like something already breaking apart. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, colder than before. Tell me something, he said quietly. When you made that deal, a beat. How much was I worth to you? Ryan didn't answer. And that was the answer. Ryan didn't answer, but he didn't hang up either. That was enough to push Ethan further. I'm coming to you, Ethan said, already turning the wheel. Not a question. A decision. Wait, Ethan, don't just show up like this. Ryan's voice cracked, panic bleeding through. You wanted me involved. Ethan cut in. Now you get all of it. The line stayed open. Minutes later, Ethan pulled up outside Ryan's apartment building. The place looked worse than he remembered. Dim lights, broken signage, a silence that didn't feel empty. It felt watched. He stepped out. Every instinct told him to slow down. He didn't. Ryan opened the door before Ethan could knock, like he'd been standing there the entire time. His face was pale, eyes restless, hands shaking slightly. You shouldn't be here, Ryan said immediately. Ethan walked past him without answering. Inside, the air felt tight. Curtains drawn. Lights low. A space that didn't belong to normal life anymore. Ethan turned, finally facing him. Start talking. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I told you everything I could know, Ethan snapped. You told me just enough to keep me useful. That hit. Ryan flinched. You don't understand what they're capable of. Then explain it. I can't. Because you don't know, Ethan shot back, stepping closer. Or because you made sure I wouldn't? The words landed harder than either of them expected. Ryan's expression shifted, anger flashing through the fear. You think I wanted to drag you into this? You think I had options? You had one, Ethan said, voice rising for the first time. Don't use me. Silence cracked between them. Ryan laughed, short, bitter. You think you're better than me? You just got lucky. That's it. Ethan didn't back off. No. I made different choices. Same thing, Ryan fired back. You just didn't get tested. That stopped Ethan for half a second. Then the anger came back, sharper. I got tested the moment I said no to you, he said. And you proved exactly why. Ryan stepped forward now, matching him. They would have destroyed me. And now? Ethan demanded. What do you think happens next? Ryan hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Ethan's voice dropped, but the intensity didn't. You didn't solve anything. You just delayed it. And you handed them something better. Ryan swallowed hard. I didn't know it would go this far. You didn't care, Ethan corrected. That broke the last restraint. Ryan shoved a hand against the table, hard enough to rattle it. I was trying to survive. And I wasn't? Ethan shot back instantly. You made that decision for me. The room felt smaller now, the distance between them gone. Two brothers. Same blood. Different lines crossed. Ryan's voice dropped, almost desperate. What do you want from me? Ethan didn't answer right away. He just stared at him, every piece finally in place. Then, quietly, too quietly, he said, I want the truth you haven't said yet. A beat. Ryan's eyes shifted. Just slightly. Ethan saw it. And in that moment, he realized something worse than everything that came before. Ryan hadn't told him everything. Not even close. Ethan held Ryan's gaze, waiting for the rest, for the part that had been deliberately left out. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until something shifted behind Ryan's eyes. Then a knock. Not loud. Not urgent. Precise. Both of them froze. Ryan's head turned slowly toward the door, his face draining of what little color it had left. No, not now, he whispered. Ethan didn't move. But something inside him did. Understanding. The knock came again. Same rhythm. Controlled. Expected. They found you, Ethan said quietly. Ryan shook his head, backing up a step. No, they were already here. That landed wrong. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What do you mean already? Ryan didn't answer. Because the door opened. Not forced. Not broken. Unlocked. The same man stepped inside. Calm. Composed. As if this space belonged to him more than either of them. Ethan didn't even turn fully this time. He already knew. Ryan, however, took another step back, panic breaking through. You said you'd give me more time. I did, the man replied evenly. And you used it. Ethan's gaze sharpened. So this is it? You orchestrated all of this. The man glanced at him, not offended, not defensive. Just acknowledging. I facilitated it. That's not different. It is, he said calmly. Because you're still here by choice. Ethan let out a short breath. You think this was a choice? The man stepped further into the room, his presence shifting the air without raising his voice. Every part of this was designed to show you something. Show me what? A brief pause. Then the answer came, low and deliberate. The difference between reacting and deciding. Ryan let out a broken laugh. This is insane. You set him up just to prove a point. The man didn't look at him. No. A beat. I set you up to expose one. The words cut clean. Ethan felt it immediately, the shift in direction, the subtle realignment of everything he thought he understood. This was never about saving him, was it? Ethan said. No. Then what? The man finally met his eyes fully. To see what you would become, when you had nothing left to trust. Silence. Heavy. Final. Ethan didn't respond. Because for the first time, the question wasn't about Ryan anymore. It was about him. And the realization settled in, colder than anything before. This wasn't just manipulation. It was evaluation. And the outcome hadn't been decided yet. Ethan didn't speak right away. The room held its breath with him, as if even the walls were waiting to see which direction he would take. Ryan stood off to the side, shaken, exposed. The man remained still, watching, not pushing, not guiding anymore. Just observing. That changed everything. Ethan's eyes moved between them, slower now, more deliberate. For the first time since this began, no one was telling him what came next. No pressure. No instructions. Just a choice. He exhaled quietly, the weight of it settling in. You wanted to see what I'd become, he said, almost to himself. The man didn't interrupt. Ethan looked at Ryan again. Not with anger this time, but with clarity. You made your decision, he said. Ryan shook his head immediately. Ethan, I can fix this. No, Ethan cut in, calm but final. You already fixed it. This is the result. The words didn't explode. They landed. Ryan's shoulders dropped slightly, something inside him giving way. Ethan turned back to the man. And you, he paused, searching for the right angle, the right truth. You built this to see if I'd break or adapt. A faint shift in the man's expression. Not approval. Not surprise. Recognition. Ethan nodded once, the last piece locking into place. Then here's your answer. He stepped forward, not toward Ryan, but past him. Toward the door. Ryan's voice rose behind him. You're just leaving? That's it. Ethan stopped, but didn't turn around. For once, he said quietly, I'm not reacting to what you did. A beat. I'm deciding what I do next. Silence followed, heavier than before. Then he added, lower, controlled, and that doesn't include saving you. Ryan didn't respond. Ethan finally looked back, just briefly, not as a brother trying to fix something, but as someone who had already let it go. Then his gaze shifted to the man one last time. No more tests, Ethan said. If I'm part of this now, it's on my terms. The man held his eyes, saying nothing. Ethan didn't wait for an answer. He opened the door and stepped out into the quiet night. And for the first time since it began, the next move was his. Ethan didn't drive away immediately. He stood beside the car, keys in hand, letting the night air cut through everything still burning inside him. The anger was no longer chaotic. It had direction. They had studied him, used him, positioned him. Now he moved. He got into the car, started the engine, and pulled out fast, this time with intent. Not random turns. Not avoidance. A destination. His phone buzzed again. Not Ryan. Unknown number. Ethan answered without hesitation. Yeah. A voice on the other end, calm. You're moving faster than expected. Ethan didn't react. So are you. A slight pause. Good. That meant he hit something. You think you're in control now? The voice asked. Ethan turned sharply onto a darker road, headlights slicing through empty space. No, he said evenly. I think you think I'm still predictable. Silence. Then he added, lower, sharper. That's your mistake. He hung up before they could respond. Seconds later, he killed the headlights. The car rolled into shadow. Still. Waiting. A black SUV passed the intersection ahead, slow, scanning. Ethan watched it go by. They're adjusting, he murmured. Good. That meant pressure was working both ways. He restarted the engine, pulled out behind them, but not too close. Not obvious. Just enough. For the first time, he wasn't being tracked. He was tracking. His breathing stayed steady, his mind moving ahead of every second. Routes. Patterns. Blind spots. You wanted a reaction, he said quietly to himself. You got one. The SUV turned. Ethan followed. Closer now. Deliberate. No hesitation left. Because this wasn't about escaping anymore. It was about breaking their control, piece by piece. Another turn. Narrow street. Less light. Perfect. Ethan accelerated. The distance closed fast. The SUV reacted too late. Now they knew. And Ethan felt it clear, sharp, undeniable. The shift was complete. He wasn't the target anymore. He was the threat. The moment didn't explode, it locked into place. The SUV swerved hard into a dead-end alley, tires screeching against wet asphalt. Too fast. Too reactive. Ethan followed without hesitation, cutting the angle tighter, blocking the exit before they could correct. Silence dropped. Not fear. Recognition. The driver stepped out slowly, hands visible, eyes scanning, not for escape, but for recalculation. "You're making a mistake," he said, voice controlled. Ethan stepped out as well, closing the distance just enough. "No," he replied calmly. "You already made it." A flicker of tension passed between them. "You were supposed to follow the pattern," the man continued. "You were supposed to react." Ethan cut in. "That's the part you got wrong." The words landed clean. For a second, no one moved. The balance had shifted completely. Ethan's gaze didn't waver. "You built everything around what I would do," he said. "But you never planned for what I'd choose." A pause. Then, quietly, "Now you adjust." The man didn't respond. He didn't need to. Because Ethan could see it, the hesitation, the break in certainty, the exact moment control slipped. Not gone, but no longer absolute. Ethan stepped back, just slightly, reclaiming space that had never really been his before. "Tell them something for me," he added, voice low, precise. Another beat. "Next time they want to use someone, a breath, they better be ready to lose them." He turned, got back into the car, and drove out, no rush, no chase behind him this time. Everything had reset. Not by chance. Not by force. But by decision. And for the first time since it all began, everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Back in the apartment, the silence felt heavier than before, but this time, it wasn't fear that filled it. It was exposure. Ryan stood exactly where Ethan had left him, but everything about him had changed. The panic was still there, but underneath it, something worse had surfaced. Understanding. The man remained near the door, watching without interference, as if this part didn't require his involvement anymore. Ryan swallowed hard. "He's not coming back, is he?" he asked, voice thin. No answer. Because he already knew. Ryan ran a hand over his face, pacing once, then stopping abruptly. "I did what I had to do," he muttered, trying to hold on to something that no longer held. The man finally spoke, calm as ever. "You did what was easiest." That landed. Ryan's head snapped up. "You don't get to judge me." "I don't need to," the man replied. "The outcome already has." Ryan let out a broken laugh, shaking his head. "I bought time. That's all I did." "At the cost of leverage you didn't understand," the man said. "You traded stability for delay." Each word stripped something away. Ryan's voice dropped. "He was supposed to help me." The man's gaze didn't shift. He did. A beat. Just not the way you expected. That hit deeper than anything else. Ryan stood there, empty now, every justification collapsing under its own weight. Because the truth wasn't complicated anymore. He hadn't been forced. He had chosen the easiest option. And in doing so, he made himself the smallest piece in a game he thought he could control. Ethan didn't look back again after that night. The road ahead stretched quiet and empty, but it didn't feel the same as before. Something had shifted permanently. He went back to his routine, at least on the surface. Same job. Same house. Same morning coffee. But the details were different now. He noticed things he used to ignore. Patterns. Movements. Silences that meant more than words. And sometimes, he would pause. Just for a second. Like at a red light. or a quiet street, or when he saw someone standing alone in the rain. The choice would flicker again. Simple, familiar, dangerous. He understood it now. Not every act of kindness is just kindness. Not every moment is random. Some decisions don't end when you make them. They begin. Ethan never said whether he regretted stopping that night. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he couldn't. But the question stayed quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore. If you were in his place, would you still stop? And maybe that's where the story really turns, not in what happened to Ethan, but in what it asks of you. Because at some point, the line stops being clear. Survival, loyalty, betrayal, they blur faster than we like to admit. So ask yourself honestly, if you were standing where he stood, would you still believe in second chances? Or would you walk away the moment trust breaks? Would you be Ethan, calm, controlled, choosing distance over damage? Or Ryan, desperate, cornered, doing whatever it takes to survive? There's no easy answer, but there is a choice. So pick your side. Team forgive or team walk away? And more importantly, why?